Have you already done the roll call, Laura?
No, we were waiting for you. I knew you.
Okay.
Mostly your
I'm
meeting.
sorry it took me a minute to sign on. It's a little bit of a struggle. Not only do I have clumsy fingers, but I'm slow on the draw, but I'm here. So my apologies for robbing us of the first 10 minutes here. Okay, we have Ms. Robertson here and Mr. Clark. Clark Henry, is that right?
Yes, I'm here, Bill.
Okay, good. How about David Hogenkamp? Not yet.
Yeah, I don't see him.
Jim Levy is here. Carla Dougal, I see you're here, Carla. Good morning. Lauren Brown. Good morning, Lauren.
Hi.
Is Linda Cicchetti joining us this morning? Do you know Lauren? No? Paulina, did I see Paulina?
Yep. Hi.
Good morning. Pete Rebecca, I'll have to give Pete a call. He's missed a few meetings. So Tess Healy, did I see Tess? Good morning, Tess. How are you?
Good morning.
And Dart Strayer? Not yet?
Or emailed me he couldn't make it this morning.
Okay. That's the group for this morning then. Oh, so good morning all. Well, why don't we move to Rosendale Road hike and bike path? I hope you all saw the wonderful letter that Carla Dougal sent to our District 3 county representatives. I know that Michelle Osterlich has communicated with the other county legislators in District 3, and they're interested, but I think Michelle is going to kind of take the lead. So if we want to communicate with our county reps, we should probably start with Michelle. And our town board members, I did get a nice thank you back from Michelle on Carla's letter. And I think her letter, along with the poll that Christine Brooks has done of Rosendale Road residents and other neighbors, is going to be important. I think big projects get started with community support. And so that's a good thing. Both Denise Murphy McGraw and Bill McPartland sent me a reply back to Carla's letters saying they thought it was a good letter and they're supportive of the project. So that's good. We're on the road to having town board members in place, so that's a good thing. One of the things that Michelle Osterlich asked about, which Jim Levy and I briefly talked about, were some ways that Complete Streets could help. And I'll let Jim Levy talk a little bit. He had a phone conversation with Michelle about grants. And Michelle is also interested in a map of Rosendale Road where it shows the project. And then we may also, at some point down the line, get a list of properties and owners, and so we'll know who will be supporters and who might be opposed doing that. But maybe I could, well, let me just start with Carla. Carla, do you have anything else you want to offer beside your letter about why this project is important? And then we'll jump over to Jim and ask if he'll just briefly discuss a map that he's been working on for this project. Your muted is off, Carlos, so you got to turn yourself on. Turn the mute off. Click on the microphone and turn it off. Okay, good. Now go ahead.
All right. No, I've lived in this house for 24 years and have used Rosendale Road and seen my kids use it and have seen many people on it. And I just, I always have felt that it has needed, you know, a sidewalk or a multi-use path. And I don't really have anything more than what's in the letter, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it's a good first start. And I do think our county legislators like hearing from citizens. And at some point, we'll have to get the list from Christine Brooks's survey, and we'll send that along to them too. So it's a good start, and I think it's important to have a local residents that live on or near the road that have used it that are saying, "Here's a problem, and it needs to get fixed." So it's a good start.
I did talk to one of the residents there was pointing out who would be for it and who would be against it. But I mean, I guess that's all covered in the survey that this other woman.
No, I think that list will be helpful, because once we get a list of the residents on Rosendale Road, we'll want to start with supporters. And so hold on to that, hold on to those notes. That'll be.
There was one issue, like somebody moved there from Albany, and they felt like if you put a sidewalk in, that it would actually it would bring more crime. That's why they left Albany, or that kind of thing. And that they live in close proximity to the school, actually. But I mean,
Well, there will be some of those. I know that on the sidewalk on Knott Street, people didn't want the sidewalk because they felt the county would cut down the trees and there'd be more crime, more trash. They couldn't leave their garage doors open, all of which turned out not to be the case. And even the folks on Windsor Drive in the beginning had ambivalence about having the hike and bike path, but now I think it's a real resource and they like having it. And I think that will be true if we get something to work on Rosendale Road.
Yeah, that's a fairly standard concern for putting in new sidewalks and bike paths. That's fairly standard, and I think that's just a outreach and education component, because there's like plenty of studies and firsthand accounts and all kinds of things that we can show people that sidewalks and multi-use paths do not increase crime and actually increase property values, like increase use of the street. Like that's just, I think it's very common to hear that. It's fear of change and fear of a lot of different things, but I think that's probably just an outreach thing that we can work on.
But a lot of the people she pointed out as well, I mean, they supported a sidewalk, actually. So it's that was like the minority of one or two people. So.
Yeah, Councilwoman Denise Murphy-McGraw did say she was supportive of mentioned the sidewalk, but I'm even the chip that goes from Upper Union to Mayfair, I don't know whether we would want to encourage. I mean, there's not that much space there, a sidewalk or a multi-use path. I actually think the multi-use path is what makes the most sense, because you have some people that would say sidewalks are not for bikers, they're for walkers, but the multi-use path is for both. And so I think it makes sense for us to be advocates of a multi-use path. And so I'll have to, point that out to Denise Murphy-McGraw that we're advocates of the multi-use path. And also I did ask Dart Strader, our last meeting, was like, well, where does this end? And just the bike path ending at the entrance to Elisha Kill Preserve may be something for a start point, but we would be concerned that it goes an ultimate other destination, which maybe we can't bite off in the first bite, but eventually maybe would like to get down to at least the traffic loop or turn around at Rosendale and River Road, and maybe a little past that where you can get in to Lock 7 Park and use one of those paths to get over to the bike path. So at some point we may want to ask the state, since they have a little money, to pave a path that would get folks over to the hike and bike path, a connection in Lock 7 Park. But anyway, Jim, maybe help us out with the map. And also you had a conversation with Michelle Osterlich, and are there optimistic prospects for getting a grant once we've got some things worked out here?
Yeah, well, I think so. So, Bill, I heard the same things from her that you did, and mainly my conversation with Michelle was just to let her know that there are funding streams out there, but really for us to get those, I think we have to do, we as the committee in the town, we need to do some legwork and start getting some information pulled together that will help her better pitch the project to the county. Because this project in particular is going to be a dual project between the town and the county. It's in the town of Niskayuna, county-owned road. So both, entities have to be on board and looking at it the same way. So I think we need to do a little bit of background research and some digging to start to put together some information that Michelle can use to bring to others at the county level, and then that beyond to the state and the CDTC and others who hold the funding streams for projects like this. So to start that, I put together, after you and I talked, just kind of the initial part of a quick assessment of Rosendale Road and Laura, I sent it to you. I don't know if you can put it up or if you want me to share my screen.
I
just show
can, if
what I did.
it doesn't work for you, but you're welcome to share your screen as well. But I do have it open if you need me.
Let's see here.
You just hit the present now button and then a window pops open and then you click on that window and it's actually quite a few buttons. And then you say share, but it's not terrible.
Let's see if that works.
Yeah, there you go.
So you're seeing the map now, the Rosendale Road overview. All right. Awesome. So, so this is just kind of, I think, like I said, the initial work that I started to put together, and I can send this out to everyone on the committee if you'd like. Mainly just showing what exists, and then there's a second page that gets into a little more detail. So as Bill said, right now, I think everyone knows from Route 7, a little ways on Rosendale Road, there is an existing there is no sidewalk, and it's needed. Then when you get a little further in, there is existing sidewalk along Rosendale Road and white area here. And then the side path that we've been discussing would essentially extend from where the sidewalk ends now, down past elementary school and the middle school, and down to Lechico Preserve. And that's kind of the segment we're looking at the moment. Beyond that, as Bill said, we'd then be looking for, I think someday taking that, that side path down to the roundabout, and then, either up the road or down toward Lock 7. I think it would be great if we could get to Lock 7 and make that connection someday. But I think that's something to do in the future. The segment we're looking at right now on Rosendale Road between the sidewalk and Lechico Preserve is almost exactly 1 mile. I think we'd be looking at it being located on the side of Rosendale Road, which is where the schools are. And obviously it connects, the existing sidewalk to the schools, to Lechico Preserve, and several neighborhoods located along Rosendale Road, which will open up the walkability of those neighborhoods to get around. Rough cost estimate using a NISDOC cost estimator, and came up with about $335,000 for the path itself, $44,000 for the curb ramps that would be required at the end of the trail, wherever, at the end of the path, wherever it meets up with an existing road or main driveway, like at the schools. And then about $8,500 for 7 painted crosswalks that would be needed to go across those roads. When you then go and the NISDOC cost estimator does this automatically, you have to add in a complexity component, incidentals, contingencies, survey design, construction inspection, without including any significant earthwork, utility pole relocations, any tree removal, pedestrians or major landscaping. We're looking at about $685,000 for that 1 mile segment. I think that will easily, once you start adding in things like earthwork, utility pole relocations, a couple will probably be necessary, maybe some tree removals, so hopefully we can most of that. I think we're probably, reaching toward $1 million by the time all said and done.
Now, Jim, this doesn't include property acquisition if we have a narrow county right of way, right? If we had to take 10 feet of someone's yard and pay for it.
Yes, I don't know if you can see what I'm highlighting, but right above where the total amount is and the cost, it says what it does not include.
Yeah.
And it does not include the right-of-way acquisition. That would be expensive. Significant earthwork would also be expensive. So I know there are some, there's some topography issues in parts. We have to do things like putting a retaining wall. That's really expensive really quickly. Pole relocations are very expensive as well. So there are a lot of contingencies that are not included in this cost estimate, but that's why I say I think this could easily go up to $1 million by the time it's all said and done. $1 million a mile is usually a pretty good estimate for a side path. It's a rough cost. So that then my next bit of work, what I plan on doing was to use Google Maps and go out there and try and find where I think we have major constraints, where there's some topography issues, the locations where the houses are really close to the road, where we're going to have spacing issues, where we think there might be some trees or utility poles that need to be moved. Try and identify some of those so we have a better handle on how much of that we're looking at. Obviously, this an engineering survey, and we'll make sure to put that caveat in there. But just try and get a better understanding of how all that kind of sits. And then I may do a really rough kind of photo rendering of what it might look like. I did some of those for the workshops that we did here in Niskayuna over the last 2 workshops. So I was thinking I might be able to put together 1 or 2 of those just to kind of show what it might look like, so we can have a sense of what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I think that's very important in terms of talking to neighbors. We might want to have a color map like this to, if you talk to somebody on the doorstep, so they see, what the project is. Obviously, if you submit, grants, and, we may try to help with some boilerplate text on grants, you'd need a map and, more detailed stuff. And I, just to even share with county legislators, town board, and other folks, it's good to have a map so they see exactly what you're trying to do. And even if you have some preliminary cost estimates, that's a good thing. And I guess building community support. Obviously, our Complete Streets Committee is supportive, and so we may have either a letter to our town board or to our county reps if we decide to do that at some point with our support. And then I think we might want to reach out to our Town Conservation Advisory Council to see if, they give us a letter of support, our town planning board, and hopefully our town board members would be supportive. So they'd be willing to, provide a note to our county representatives on this. And then, if the school district is supportive, the PTOs at Rosendale and Iroquois schools are supportive, and obviously the neighbors around, I think that will be helpful in doing this project. And as I mentioned at our last meeting, there are folks out there that are saying, in terms of keeping the economy going, governments need to spend money on projects to keep construction people employed and to keep the economy going. And I just see this as an investment in our community. It's long-term. Once it's there, it'll be there over the long haul, and it would be a good thing to spend money on. And so if we can get some money through grants, would be good. If we're a little short on grants, we'd ask the county to use some of their borrowing authority to make up the rest. And the interest rates are so cheap now that I think it's a good project. And, I think people are inclined to take a good look at it. And, the work we do, looking out some of these details, will make Michelle Osterlich's life easier to get approvals and to try to get a grant. So,
how much room is available on Rosendale Road for a path right now without taking anyone's property?
Say that again.
How much, how much space has to be for driving, and how much space belongs to the road right now that could just become part of the path?
I have heard that the county right-of-way is not that wide, and so on Rosendale Road, so we'll have to speak with Paul Sheldon or someone at the county to find out what the county right-of-way is. And one of the things that we saw on Van Antwerp Road when we did the sidewalk there, the county didn't have a lot of right-of-way, and so it couldn't put a sidewalk on both sides from Balltown Road down to Upper Union. So the county actually used its right of way. It moved the road a little bit to the east or the west, and then put the sidewalk on the other side. So they didn't go out of their right of way, but they were able to do a road and curb and a sidewalk. Here, I'm guessing that there will be some movement onto people's yards, and if it's a side yard, so your house faces Rosendale or Rose Hill or Godfrey, and it's just your side yard that might be affected, probably most people would be okay. If it affects your front yard and you've got some trees or flowers, then that's different, and that would be hard for some neighbors to do. And you'd hope that, I believe the county, if they have to take a tree, they'll put in a replacement tree, that those folks would see the benefit to having the hike and bike path and still would be willing to do it, even though they had some encroachment on their front yard. So
for it to be,
we need to get the answer to that.
For it to be a multi-purpose path, does it have to be 10 feet wide, or could it be narrower?
The standard now is 10 feet. It was 8 feet, but the standard is 10 to give you people to pass and have the distance between them. That's something we'd have to look into. I think I was trying to pull up Google Maps, but I don't think I could share it. There's really no room. Rosendale Road right now is really narrow. There's almost no shoulder on a lot of it. So anything we do is going to have to be in addition to what's there now. There really isn't any room of existing road width that we can utilize.
Yeah, the road width varies, but it's typically 40 feet, which is tiny for that big of a road.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely need probably some neighbors cooperating, and it could be, land acquisition to do it, will be hard. And if there's a lot of opposition, we might not be able to make it work. We'll have to see. But we'll just have to hope that, residents are going to say, well, even though it goes on my front yard, it's a good thing for the environment. It's a good thing for the safety of kids going to the schools, using Elisha Kill Preserve, and the overall breathability of our town in terms of hiking pedestrian path, and that they'd be willing to do it. So that's kind of where we are.
I think some sort of path is better than no path at all. And so it might be good to present it with two options of like a narrower one and the ideal of 10 feet, because 10 feet on that narrow road just seems really wide, and I could see it not happening at all if you were presenting it as it has to be 10 feet.
Well, there is a ditch there that carries the water now that in some sense is a little bit of a buffer between the road and a hike and bike path. So it would be a buffer from cars, which that borrow pit, along part of it is already there. But you're right, Tess, it could be, we could go down to 8 feet, at least for this, which would save 2 feet, which is a lot. And we'll have to look at that. I know that there might be some thought about a sidewalk, but a sidewalk doesn't really work because people would say sidewalks are for pedestrians and not bikes. So we really have to do, maybe at least a 6-foot asphalt path so that you can have both bicycle riders and pedestrians. So.
Does it make sense to, if you're doing all of this work and putting all this effort into it, to continue the path to Ferry Road, so at least it connects with the Mohawk Hudson bike trail, and make that a selling point as well?
Well, yes.
You can actually connect it to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail through Lock 7. So, while it would be wonderful to go all the way down to Ferry Road, that's another couple miles, which is a couple million. But yeah, that's
Ferry's
what
is a long ways. You could think about, as I look at
there's the Lock 7 road to the Mohawk.
when I look at Agostino on the town map, it does, across from that, there seems to be a trail that goes through Lock 7 Park over to a connection to the hike and bike path. So in some sense, at Agostino, it does line up with one of the earth trails going through Lock 7 Park. And if, it wouldn't be, at some future point, I don't think too heavy a lift. I go from Elisha Kill Preserve. If you're already on that side of the road, kind of on the south side of Rosendale there, you go down to the turnaround, down to Agostino, and then, the path would take you through the park over to Lock 7 Park, where you could pick up the hike and bike path. And so I do think we would want to at least have some scenarios for a future second step, how you get to the Mohawk Hudson hike and bike path, but we wouldn't try to do that now. It would be too expensive, but we'd at least want to show we have thought about where's another endpoint that connects, and so that would be a good thing. I do, as you look at the map, people can still go down Godfrey to Hempstead and around to get over to Riverdale to get to the hike and bike path at Riverdale. So there's a pathway over there once you get on. So there is a way.
Yeah,
That's right, it'd be nice to do it this way. So
Another
Okay.
thing, could you swing it around River Road too and go up the power lines area, like have a crossover there? For future kind of thing.
Yes, I think that's another option, which is going up river and going, and we probably have to maybe walk it and look at both options. I did think going from the traffic circle down to Agostino is that you do at least pick up 2 more town streets, Agostino and Deanna Court, those neighbors that, but you're right, going the other way, you do get Seneca and Covington and maybe some others. So I don't really have the answer to that. I guess I would just say phase 2, we'd have to look at a couple options. We could even present both options for, here are some possible options to get over to the Mohawk Hudson bike path, once we get as far as the Elisha Kill Preserve. So All good questions.
Anything that we do, even if we look at Rosendale Road, we'd be looking at I think a couple alternatives and just looking at what option there. It's not going to be that we're going to put out one option of just a 10-foot path. I think we look at what the other possibilities are, certainly as a group, and then figure out, how we want to prioritize those or whatever it might be. In terms of utility, right of ways, that can be done, and that seems like a really simple answer, but it can be very difficult to get public access to a utility right away. Just as
Okay. Anybody else have a thought on this project? Okay. Thank you all for your input, and thank you to Laura for a wonderful letter to the county reps. Thank you to Jim Levy for work on the map, and we'll get some other committee members involved in doing some more of our work to, I guess, to do some of the legwork to make it easier for our county reps to submit a grant or to do some other steps to make this happen.
Yeah, so
Okay.
do you think that the map that Jim made is really helpful, and maybe some of the visuals for what it looks like on the side are really helpful? Maybe one of the first steps is we put together kind of a, like you said, like a package of what it would look like and where it would go, and then we can start sharing that with residents and planning boards and CACs and town boards. So I think building off of that map right now is a really good next step.
Okay, the next map that Jim's thinking about would actually, I think, be kind of a picture of half a block or individual properties where you can see, oh, here's a fire plug, here's a light pole, here are some trees.
And I thought you
Here's
were talking
the
about
pit.
renderings. Like, Jim, weren't you talking about renderings where you kind of just like Photoshop it in so you can see what it looks like? You're muted.
You need to turn on your mic, Jim.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely do a rendering or two, just to kind of show what it looks like. And I did think I'd at least try and identify the major concerns.
Oh, okay. So that is what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of take that what I did to the next level with more detail.
Thank you guys for all your hard work on that. I think it's really good.
Okay. Thank you all. And how about if we move to the bike survey next? I sent it out to everybody in the middle of the night last night. I know Jim had shared it with the committee before. We kind of just wanted folks to give it one more read over. And if you're okay, then would we do a blasted on this, Laura, or would we just put it on the website?
I think we should do a blast and put it on the website. So we'll put it on the website and then blast like a link to it. I would think. Or if it's, are we thinking like SurveyMonkey, or how are we posting it? Have we said that before? I'm sorry.
It is a SurveyMonkey survey now, so it's all online and ready to go.
Yeah, so we can put it on our website, but then also embed the SurveyMonkey link into a blast. I just had two things. The town board is it's a little tricky to ask people for their home address. I know you wrote you don't need to have it, but I wonder if we could take out the sentence of a specific street address is preferable and just say a neighborhood or street name is fine.
Absolutely.
And then the only other thing I noticed is that there's a lot of references to pause, and I wonder if we should swap out pause to pandemic, because we're not really under pause anymore, sort of. But things are still very different in the pandemic, and we're expecting them to continue to be a little bit different. So I think that the content of the questions are completely the same. I just wonder if we should swap out pause with pandemic.
I agree. I think we're past pause. When we started this, we were in that term.
My fault. We should have gotten this up a long time ago, but I still think that the questions are really relevant. And what I would really look forward to is where people say, like, where would you really like to see improvements? I would really like to see, I know we've gotten some good feedback from that question at some of our events, but I think that this survey is probably going to reach farther out to people than our events, because our events require people to come and decide that they're going to fill out a survey and hold on to their 2-year-old for long enough that they can, do something. So
And a lot more people
would you change it, Laura, from pandemic to just during the work from home, or just say it's a Complete Streets survey, or what other word
No,
might
I
be
like
used?
pandemic because I do think that it's interesting to capture the changes that are happening with transportation from the pandemic. I just think that pause is a little outdated.
I agree.
Okay.
On the version I just saw too, it has where it says question title above each question. I don't know if that was just a weird version, but to make sure it doesn't say that anymore before each question.
Question title.
It says that, yeah, before every single number. I wonder if that's just because you're printing it out from SurveyMonkey.
Yeah, I think that was the Google Doc form, but if you go to the link for the actual survey, it doesn't say that.
Okay, that's what I assumed. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I just copied the link on SurveyMonkey to Word and then sent it to people, so that might be, it just copies over that way, but it wouldn't be on SurveyMonkey.
He is,
Yeah, 'cause I'm not seeing that survey monkey, so I guess it must have been the copy over though. Okay.
Okay, good.
SurveyMonkey is pretty consistent, but should we test this amongst our committee before it gets blasted out,
I think so.
just to make sure?
So Jim can see some answers come in and just make sure that it's all functioning the way that we want it to.
Yeah.
Jim, did you get my answer? I filled it out, I think, before the last meeting.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't go in and check it, but yeah, I think I got one a while
'Cause
ago.
I thought it was a pretty good survey. So
I like
thank
it.
you for that. I thought it was really good. I think the questions were, I think you'll get a lot of good responses, especially to that question Laura was talking about. So I think I'm excited to see them.
hmm And then we can use that to kind of drive how we prioritize some of the things that, we're looking at doing too, I think. If we could really so I think the first time we put out a big survey with Farmers Market and we got like 600 responses. Then we did the chicken survey, which I actually was never able to get around to taking. But I mean, I think we got like 1,400 responses on the chicken survey or something. And then, so if all goes well and the trend continues, maybe we could even be reaching, over 1,000 or 2,000 people, which would be awesome.
Okay, good. If anybody has any final thought on reading the survey about how a question is worded, or we could send those along to Jim Levy, who prepared the survey. And if we're happy with it, then I think Paulina's got a good suggestion. We'll do a test run just with the committee, and then if that works, does it go as a blasted, Laura, or do we just let folks know it's on the town website, or how do residents find out?
Yeah, I think we have to blast in order to do that outreach. So we would just want to have a window of time. I think, typically it's been about 2 or 3 weeks to a month when we put these surveys out. But realistically, after you do an email blast, somebody's not going to go back in their email a month later and be like, oh, I never filled this out. So you'd want to think of so maybe Jim, if you can go back and just update the one question about the address, not asking for a specific address, and then just change pause to pandemic, and then email us and say it's ready to go. Do you guys want to input? And then, you can get like 5 or 6 responses and make sure that they're tallying correctly and that all the answers seem to be semi-normal. And then we would just compose, and it can be a very short email. Just say, hey, Complete Streets is working on, projects within your neighborhood. We're interested to see how your mobility has changed during the pandemic. Please fill out the survey. All answers are confidential or whatever. I think you have that in there.
And I'll blast on my Facebook page, and I can blast on the Niskuna Moms group, which has, I think, 300 local moms or some ridiculous number. So I'll blast that too once the link is available.
Okay. And so then we can put it up there, and then we can also link it to our website. So we just put it on there. I learned how to do something new, which I think is going to be really helpful to our boards, is that each one of our boards has a news and announcements tab. So I have a fairly easy and good way of putting stuff up on our website now that I did not know how to do 2 weeks ago.
Cool.
Jim, on question 11, you mentioned some items that, would help increase safety, connectivity. Are we providing a list of items and people would check what they think is important? Or are we just leaving it up to people to fill in question 11 with some item that they think is important? I mean, And I guess I'm wondering if we had 10 items there, would they say, oh, I like all 10 of them, and, you know, we'll check them off? Or, I mean, should that be a check the box question or a fill in the answer question?
I mean, it's set up as an open-ended question now, but we can certainly change that if that's what we want to do. And people would have to do check boxes, whatever we feel like doing.
So in one sense, I think checkboxes are nice because people can identify with them and stuff. But the downside to checkboxes is you don't get the creativity of, or maybe somebody not even necessarily understanding the question, but putting in there something that, you know, is still thought provoking that we, you know, hadn't thought about.
Okay. Okay. Well, then we'll stay with open-ended for now, if that's what we think. Okay, anything else on the survey? Okay, very good. If we're ready, can we move on to item number 3, the Complete Streets website update? And I'm happy to share a couple of thoughts that I had on that. At our last meeting, Dart was saying, gee, it's, well, one, I went to the website and it doesn't have our current members. It has the 1999 members. So we have a couple folks that have gone off the committee, Jared Wells and some other folks, and we've got some new folks. And I was thinking we could update the website on the Complete Streets Committee, so town residents would understand, well, what is this committee? What do we do? And I do have some items that I thought would be maybe useful to start it with. And I did send the resolutions out to people. One would just be the start date of the committee on June 30, 2016. And obviously we had the Safe Routes to Schools Committee before us, but the town, by town board resolution, created our committee on June 30, 2016. Then I put our resolution 220-13, that's our current committee members. So people in town would say, oh, who are the members of the committee? They'd be able to see that. And so your neighbors would be coming over to knock on your door to give you input on Complete Streets and would be able to speak with someone on the committee. Then our town Complete Streets policy, resolution 2017-41, that outlines some of the goals and the purpose of the committee. I think that should be out there as kind of a public document, so we know what the town board's intent of the Complete Streets Committee is. We put that out. Then Jeff Twitty, before we kind of had a summary of the year prior where we listed some of our accomplishments and other things. And I thought that I could give a start to an Excel spreadsheet that would be you know, kind of Complete Streets events and workshops or grants we've gotten, which would be kind of educational things that we would list anything from June 30 forward, and, you know, be in date order perhaps, which would be, I mean, we've had 2 workshops, we've had the 2 bike events, training people on safe bike usage, any training things we've done. If we have a virtual event this fall, we put that on. It would be anything we've done in terms of reach out, which could be our survey. It could be really kind of anything that we do. We'd list that on there as an activity. And then I thought another would be, another section would be infrastructure improvements put in place, which even though the Rose Hill connection from Merlin down to the bike path got started before 2016, it was finished after that. So this would be kind of anything that's happened in the town that, you know, we've supported, and it could be we didn't find the money to do it, and who knows, money might have been a state grant, the money might have been county money, it might have been town money. Something happened by way of, say, the recently redone paving on the bike path that a grant from Phil Steck did. We would list that 3.2 miles, any crosswalks that happen, any sidewalk extensions, any, you know, the push button lights. So certainly the one at Aqueduct, the push button light on Rosendale Road, kind of anything that's happened that promotes bike safety and even some auto things, we would list that as something that we've supported, something that's an infrastructure change that's made getting around the town safer. And if we put our town map out there, I mean, just kind of anything that's loosely within our domain, we would list that as an infrastructure change that we. And so I would give a first draft to an Excel sheet and then send it out to the committee because I can't remember everything we've done. But if we look through our notes, or people may have another idea about something, they say, oh, we got to add this to the list. And then third, it might be, some goals and possible future projects. If we have 20 ideas that we might put in chapter 7 of the town master plan, or just some other things that might be on our big complete streets map, we could list a few of those or not, put that out there. And then I also thought our town complete streets map that Mark Storty has done, I mean, that we could list that as an item on our website if people wanted to look at that. And then the survey that Jim's prepared, I mean, unless we have a closeout date on this, I mean, if we take input, we could, we certainly would list that as an event, but these are just some items that I would suggest that we could put on the website. So if somebody said, hey, who are these people? What are Complete Streets? What's their mission in the town? What have they worked on? And, we have some things that we think have changed in the town as a result of some of our efforts. And so we list those out there.
It could be kind of cool to have that survey permanently there, provided it's not too cumbersome for Jim to check responses periodically. But it could be kind of a cool thing when they check out the website to think, that their input, they can add it at any time, not just in a specified window.
Yeah.
But that sounds
I think,
cool.
we can leave it up. I think what I would do would actually be to put the survey up now and see what kind of results we get for this period, and then just change the link so that it's a different link for people to go to, and then we would just calculate and keep all those survey links after a certain period of time. So if we keep it up for a week or two as our initial blast, that's our set of results, and then I can set up, it's the same survey, just we'd reestablish the link to then capture kind of an ongoing, set of answers, and that way we have kind of forms, because I think as time goes on, I think the answers could change a little, things may change, but yeah, I think it'd be great to have, whether it's that online or just an open-ended kind of survey question that says, what do you want to see? We can certainly talk about other options for that as time goes on. Absolutely.
Actually, that's a good thought. I mean, as part of our website link, I mean, we might even, could we have something that's just kind of open-ended? So if somebody's reading about us or has a thought on, hey, I'd like to send you a page on things in my neighborhood or in the town that would make it better. And so here's a way to communicate with a Complete Streets Committee. Maybe we need a Complete Streets Committee address of some global type so that, somebody could say, oh, here are my thoughts. I want to send you a page on some things, and we'd have an avenue to get it. So, but that'd be a good thought.
Yeah, you could either do that through an email, Bill, or like I say, I can set up a SurveyMonkey question that's just literally just an open-ended comment box, and all people have to do is click on the link, and it takes you to that box, and they can just post something, and I can
I think we should add that as an item, just kind of an open-ended link to hear from people, and we get ideas and we could look at them. So I think that's a good idea.
Whatever works, we can definitely set something up.
Okay, and I don't think it would be that heavy a lift because I did send the resolutions to people. We could do that. I'll work on accomplishments, kind of a list, and then whether the town board would let us put Mark Storty's map out there on our website or not, we could ask them that. And some of our future goals. I mean, certainly anything we put on there, we'd have to get town board approval. So we'd put together a package and ask them, can we put these things on our website? And if they're comfortable, good, it goes. And whatever they don't like, they don't like. So, but it would be a start. And okay. Anything else? Anybody have any further thoughts on website before we move on? Or okay. Let's move on to under discussion items, a Complete Streets event. I guess our virtual tour maybe, or we obviously can't have a more populated event because we're trying to avoid interactions. And I actually was thinking about asking Laura if we could have the August meeting in my backyard and do masks and social distancing. Streets committee, but maybe that's too much. That's something to think about. But
Yeah, maybe we could have it in the gazebo.
Yeah.
yeah, we could have it in the gazebo.
Oh. Yeah, because
Unless
I mean,
that's a bad
it's
message
gonna
for
be
town
fun.
residents. But
We used to just record it. The one nice thing, which I've said to you guys before about the virtual meetings, is nobody was ever really able to watch our meetings before. And you got a fair amount of hits. Like, people are interested. There was, I don't know, I think maybe she dropped off because she was trying to watch the live stream, but it hadn't started yet because we hadn't started our meeting yet. But people definitely, I do think, like to be able to go back and listen to the meetings later. And once we go back to meeting in person, we don't have a really good way of recording them still.
Mm.
And
But-
this is good for sharing documents too. Whereas if we're in the gazebo, it would have been harder. I mean, Jim could have brought a laptop or something, but it was nice to see a full screen right in front of me.
Yeah, that's the one thing we lose when we go back to in person. Sometimes we have technical difficulties, but it is really good for sharing the meetings with the public.
well, we could all bring our laptops and put them on a table in the gazebo, so we'd still be we'd be live in two different respects. We'd be live on the computer, you'd be able to record it, and we could still look at each other. So, okay. I mean, my recommendation before was, and I don't know whether the Celts property push button crosswalk will be there by October. I suspect not, but you know, even if the one at St. Joseph is not there, I mean, we could still, you know, have what I would say is a course or something that people could ride on their own with their families to see. I mean, they'd see the crosswalk. Well, one, they'd be able to see a bike path next to a road, which would be bike path on Knott Street East and on Windsor, and then weave around on some streets, and you'd see the crosswalk on River where you go from Riverdale over. So it would be.
Well, when we talked about this with the town, actually, they were really interested in us doing the event in the Clifton Park, Crescent, Old Niskayuna kind of area. Do you remember that? So we were talking about putting like temporary, like pedestrian and bicycle accommodations on the road or share roads in some areas, but also as a complete streets because it would be less of like a bike rodeo. Maybe this is our chance to focus more on the cars, which, you know, is also within our purview. And we were talking about putting up some kind of traffic calming in Old Niskayuna to see if some of those treatments were well liked. So we could do a couple different treatments. They could drive through.
Well, we could do too. I mean,
and then
really,
if we get a sense of what treatments people like, then we can look at trying to apply them maybe even uniformly across the Old Niskayuna and more permanently. I don't know.
That'd be cool.
I mean, I don't know that we have to be limited to one, especially if the one loop is just a virtual event that you do on your own time. If we could get the Sharrows repainted on Orchard Park, then people do see a hike and bike path. They do get across River Road. I mean, it's a couple mile ride that you could do. And you do have, you know, the crosswalk at St. Joseph, which could be a painted one. Maybe we have to wait till we get a push button, but even if the county paints one, then you get back onto Orchard Park and you see some Sharrows. So, I mean, it would be, we point out some things that you could see on that loop. And since people take it on their own, we could just make it available for if you want to ride. And then I'd say if we have something on Crescent Road or another place where we have some other things, I mean, they're kind of do them on your own time anyway. And so if we had two things to look at, I don't see a problem with that either, really. And let me ask you, Laura, on that, is that, I mean, what kind of examples would you look at? I know that you mentioned Crescent Road, Clifton Park as kind of complete streets would look at it and have some suggestions for the town board or the planning board.
Yeah, no, I'm remembering last meeting. I think last meeting we decided, and again, sorry that I didn't have the minutes because then we could read it, but I'm pretty sure we did decide to do two. One would be like put out your own, like try this path whenever you feel like it kind of thing, where we're just posting a path for people to ride. And then the other one would be like a drive-through festival where, you know, we're putting hay bales down or whatever on.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Stuff like that. Yeah. I think you and I are both remembering that differently, but I think we both actually,
Yeah.
I think we did decide to do two. So we just kind of have to decide on a route that we could put together and post and publish, you know, on one weekend, and then on a different weekend we could have a drive-through event with the traffic calming treatments like on Clifton Park or.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the hay bales would be the chicanes. It would create the chicanes, right? Then.
Yeah. So maybe you do a hay bale chicane, and maybe in an intersection you do like a little mini traffic circle with hay bales or whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do.
Well, a traffic circle, if you did an example, people would be like, well, does that mean we have traffic circles anticipated that would be on the way? I think.
Yeah, if the hay bale little mini traffic circles are like, they are controversial and they do work.
Yeah.
But
One of the things that we talked about was waiting to see what the results of the survey was, so to figure out what area to do that in or what kind of pop-up event to do. But I don't know if we have that much time or how long the survey is going to be out to plan something after that. But that just came up. I remember talking about that.
yeah, I think we have time. I mean, you could do a hay bale pop-up event, you know, in October, November. It's probably easier to get the hay bales then anyway. Like, you know, I wish that it would be snowing a lot here in October and November, but it doesn't.
I think the thought was that we were going to put our effort into, designing something, like you said, over on the western side of Balltown Road over in the Old Niskayuna area. And then the ride that Bill was talking about was something we were going to do, app exercise. It didn't take a lot of effort by the committee. But I think we also said we wanted to wait until, or we were hoping to wait until at least there was a push button installed up on the road over by GE there. Health property, and that whole area is going to change yet. But the idea was that they could then ride the existing crosswalk that's on River Road over by the ball fields without one, and then go another, 3/4 of a mile down the road or a mile down the road and hit the one on River Road that has the push button, and then also ride through the neighborhoods and see, the difference between riding on the trail, the push button, and the lack of a push button, so that we could then get some feedback on what people thought about that to try and hopefully get some more support for more push button crossings, throughout town. So two separate projects, one that I think requires more complete streets, effort and work, and then the other one that's more of just a mapping, outreach exercise. But that's the other one, I think, again, is dependent on when that push button crosswalk goes in on River Road.
Yeah, just so that I don't get, I mean, I really love all these things and I completely support all of you guys, but it's probably like, I will focus in on getting the survey blast out. So we can get that out there and start collecting those responses. And then, I mean, I think probably if we can review them within 2 weeks, I don't think we necessarily have to have an end date on the blast, but like if we review, we're going to get the majority of responses within probably the first 2 weeks. Probably going to get the majority of responses within the first couple of days, but I don't know, like maybe we can get the Gazette to run an article about it too. Like I think that we got a second wave of things from the chicken survey through the Gazette.
So there are others that we can send a link to if we want to. I'm just afraid if we go too far out, we're going to get people coming to answer the survey from outside of town, which isn't necessarily a problem. But
Yeah.
Go back, and there is actually a City of Schenectady / Schenectady County bike advocacy group that just started about a year ago with our claimant. All of those groups could blast this out, but their lists are a lot bigger than just Niskayuna, so we might get a lot of responses that aren't Niskayuna, which isn't necessarily a problem. It could change the perspective if we get a lot of non-residents filling it out. But those are places we can go to ask for, to send out the blast as well.
And if we have their addresses.
It's interesting. Like there are definitely people from like GE and Capel that do commute here with bicycles. So like I mean, but they may already be receiving blasts from the town of Niskuna because they work here. Who knows? But it would not necessarily be a bad thing to see what people who are trying to like commute into Niskuna on their bicycles feel as well.
Yeah, I think if we took the message you put together for the e-blast, Laura, and maybe just make a few tweaks to it, if we send it out to larger groups, that would work. Just making sure that people understand this is, kind of, it's focused on the town. It's not a countywide survey.
So Jim, should we have a question on the survey that asks, are you a Niskuna town resident? Yes or no? Commute to work in Niskuna or live outside Niskuna, so that we'd be able to tell, oh, these are the responses we got from Niskuna town residents. These are from maybe people who commute, and then the other would be people who live outside the town. So we would know, we'd be able to say, this is what town residents think on, what improvements they want to see or whatever.
Yeah, we need to tweak the first question on there that we asked about the neighborhood or street number. I think we can tweak that one to say if you live outside Niskuna, and then we could probably wrap it all into that one first question.
Okay. I mean, I was thinking somebody, even a Niskuna resident, might not want to give you their street address. They might just want to answer whatever. And if we had, maybe a question or another that just tells us, okay, I'm not giving you my street address, but I am going to let you know that I live in the town of Niskuna, or something, I guess.
I'll take a look and see what we can do that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to do the survey. We'll see what responses we get back from that. And we may use some of that to decide our other event on a town street where we might use some hay bales to do some chicanes or paint some sharrows or do some other training kinds of things. We'd get some input from that would be dependent on the results from the survey. Okay, anything else on a Complete Streets event? And Laura, let me ask you, did we ask Highway if they have a copy of the of a Sharrow decal, so that if we wanted to update Orchard Park Drive, we could do it, or if we wanted to do whatever road we use for a fall event, we'd have a Sharrow that the town could paint.
I have it, I think. I have it. It might just be behind my door. Hold on.
Okay. While Laura's looking, anybody else have any further thoughts on a fall event?
We had used I'm blanking on the name, but that group in Troy, Capital Roots, to help us before, and they had all the Sharrow, decals and everything. If we don't have one, or Florida doesn't have one, and we need something, there are other towns now that have done a lot more of this work. We might be able to, maybe I can call Janet CTC or can, and just ask what other towns have started doing more demonstration projects and things, and maybe we can borrow some equipment from them.
Okay. Well, I think borrowing is one thing, but I think a Sharrow, certainly I would think the town would be able to afford to buy that decal, so we, get some of the stuff. Our own highway department has some of the stuff we might need, so, but that's a good thought.
Yeah, that would be borrowing would be a backup.
Okay.
We ordered an 111-inch FHWA DOT shared bike lane stencil Sharrow. That's what we have.
Okay. So that's the one that we used for Orchard Park Drive, the same size and everything?
No, Capital Roots did the Sharrow for that, but our second event we ordered it for, and we were reimbursed for it. And it's enormous. Like, I have it rolled up in a it's really big.
So in other words, you just roll that out on the road and then you paint in the decal, and that creates the Sharrow on the road?
Yeah, it's 111 inches long by like 48 inches wide.
You're good.
So that's like, what is that? That's a lot. Yeah. It's like I don't know.
11 feet or so. It's 11 feet or whatever, 10 feet.
Huh?
Bill, we'll want to use whatever paint you used last time.
Well, yes.
I don't know. I'm trying to stay on the highway department good side, but I guess, we had them on Orchard Park and we didn't get a peep out of any residents. So it's a good training thing for people to see them on roads. And so they get familiar with what they are, which would be part of our training protocol to say this is a Share-O and what is the message that goes to a pedestrian or a bicyclist or a motorist when they see a Share-O. So
Yes, so we have been talking with Weston and Sampson about the critical pedestrians grant, and we are removing the crossing at Kelts Farm because Joel Burgoyne will pay to put that in, and the town board did support the Complete Streets recommendation to require that be like literally the first thing he does under construction. And there's gonna be a lot of pressure on him to do that early on because the town board that's a very high priority crossing for them, and they've been hearing a lot of comments from the residents. So, but the paving did go over budget as compared to what the line item was in the budget. So we don't have enough probably to add another crossing. And so what I talked about doing with our engineer is for him to examine that Orchard Park corridor and work directly with the highway department to come up with treatments for shared, shared areas that, work for highway. We've tried to have that conversation, and sometimes I don't know. I'm just seeing like if an engineer goes down there, if he can get something, from them and then implement that on that corridor so that we're connecting Knott Street to the new trail or the new crossing that we're putting in at St. Joseph's, so that we'll have on trail on Knott Street, off trail on street from Knott Street to St. Joseph's, and then the new crossing from St. Joseph's to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail. That's the changes we made to the pedestrian grant. But whatever treatment he designs, he's going to thoroughly vet with highway, and then theoretically, once we implement it on Orchard Park or whatever, we could implement it on other on-street areas where our Complete Streets maps calls for on-street connections.
would you say that again, Laura? In other words, the bike path is going to go from Windsor Drive to River Road, and then there'd be a pathway, and then separately at St. Joseph's. I kind of missed it. So,
All right, hold on.
We're talking about two of them, right?
On my screen, but let me see if I can show you. Oh, it's over here. I was looking at Rosendale. I was measuring the right of way. It's really, really tiny. Tiny. Okay. So currently we have the bike path that goes down Knott Street, and we're doing a little crossing here.
Yes, at St. Joseph's and River up there.
Yeah. And so we have Share-Os painted like here and I think here. But what we were saying, and they have gone, generally speaking, very well. Like I had never heard a complaint, and I did hear one person say that they like them. So, so what we were saying is that this is an on-street connection from this bike path to here. And so what we want to do is like take our Share-O, figure out, colors or whatever we want to do, or markings or signage, and put down an on-street connection from here to St. Joseph. So it's tying in with the new crosswalk that we're doing here. So we're tying in the existing bike path here to the new crosswalk with an on-street treatment. And we'll coordinate that on-street treatment with the highway department. And then whatever works for them, whatever, they're willing to be comfortable with, once we get kind of a standard on-street treatment for, the bike paths that are on street or Share-Os or whatever, probably Share-Os, once we can get them to say, okay, we can live with that, then theoretically on-street treatments are not very expensive. Like once we have this kind of one that works and we've demonstrated it from here to here, we would hopefully be able to take that on-street treatment and apply it to other places on our Complete Streets maps that call for on-street treatments. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes. And we have grant money to pay for that work that's going to happen this summer. Is that right?
Right. Instead of the grant covering the connection over here, over down there, because the developer is going to pay for that, we're reallocating that money to an on-street treatment here because it's less, because we went a little bit high on the paving, which is fine.
Okay.
Fine.
Good. And Knott Street and Regent, is that also in the grant, or does that
That's
go?
still in there, and the sidewalk's still in there. So the only thing we took out of the grant is the crossing, in front of Kelts Farm, because the developer is going to pay for that. So why use grant money?
Right.
Spend grant money elsewhere where you can get a greater, but we didn't have enough to put another crossing in because the paving was more expensive. So we're like, what can we do, with the reduced budget? And we're like, let's do an on-street treatment that we can apply, hopefully universally where we need on-street treatments.
So it's a template that we would want our own highway department to be comfortable with, and we'd use it elsewhere. And this would just be the first, the pilot on-street treatments.
Yeah, and I feel like it's good because the share rows have been on Orchard Park for so long. Like those people are clearly not bothered by them. Like they're a good place to really make them permanent.
Yeah, I'd like to see Cheryl's all the way on Orchard Park Drive and then on St. Joseph too. So you go from that street all the way to River Road, and you've got the.
And maybe we come up with standard signage too that says, on-street bike path, share the road or something. Like I don't know. He'll come up with that and figure out what the highway department, has an appetite for. But I feel like share roads, the plows don't bother them. I mean, it's not very costly. I don't think when you're looking at treatments to redo the paint every couple of years, like it's really not. It's not a high maintenance problem. I don't think, not being in the highway department, but just using, my thoughts on it.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, Laura, that's fantastic. I mean, that's exactly how these things are supposed to work. We did it as a demonstration project, and it just happened to be there for a bit longer. No one's complained. Now we're going to take that demonstration project and make it hopefully more permanent and something that it'll actually connect one area to another. It wasn't just kind of a blip. It actually will work. Any neighborhood that we know is pretty much happy with what was done before, and then that becomes a template for using it elsewhere. And to be perfectly honest, Sharrows are probably the most useful thing we're going to have here in town on town roads. We're not a ton of bike lanes or a ton of side paths. Sharrows are really going to be a lot of, I think, what we'll be looking at. And I think that'd be huge if we get that in to really advancing what we're trying to do here in town and get awareness of bicyclists on the road for with vehicles. So that would be huge. That'd be a great, I think, installation and use of that money.
What about expanding it a little bit in the neighborhood between where I live at near Hillside Elementary, and then going up Regent towards the co-op? There's signs on the street that say this is a bike trail. I assume you guys are familiar with them. Could we add the Sharrows to those roads? Because then that also, if you follow those signs, they also get you up to St. Joe's.
Yeah, that's the idea. The Canalway Trail signs, right? Are they the Canalway Trail signs? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea, because there's actually some Canalway Trail signs already on this path.
Okay.
So if I think the Canalway Trail signs, they come down Morrow and hit Orchard Park and then get you over to St. Joseph Drive, but they're not on Orchard Park from Morrow down to Knott Street. And they are slightly different. I still don't 100% understand where all the Canalway signs come from, but yeah, the idea would be to take those kind of streets and say, here's a bike path, like pay attention, put the Sharrows on the road, for even more attention to the on-street, and then, get the highway on board with whatever signage and painting markings that we're using.
Great.
Laura, do you know, is it the Erie Canal Trailway? Is that what it's called? Or these signs?
Yeah, she's got her binder.
Is this trail on our town complete streets map now, or is it one of the lines that if you wanted to see the Erie Canal Trailway in the town, on our town complete streets map, are there markings that show the trailway on there? So if somebody were interested in where does it run in the town of Niskayuna, they could go out to our big complete streets map and see it. And since you're now the custodian of that map, you could create a new line denoting that and add it to our map, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really know where the Canalway Trail sign
It's weird. It runs on Dean and Baker and works its way down, I think, Lexington over to where on the Niskayuna line. It does a weird thing to get over the Balltown Road and off Balltown and over to St. Joseph. So,
but yeah. I think
Right.
adding it to our map is definitely a good thing, especially if people are following it. I think maybe if I can find out where it comes from.
They have a whole website where they have the
Do they?
canal listed. Yeah. So it's Cycle the Erie Canal is like what they say on their website, but I can, if you Google Erie Canal Trail, Niskayuna, like it'll link you to, or Erie Canal Trail, it'll link you to the whole map. I could, I'm on
Parks
my
and Trails
phone.
New York.
Can't pull it up. Yes, ptny.org. Yes.
Yeah, they've got the online mapping. You can see all the trails that they have
Yes.
listed.
So maybe we should add it to our map.
'Cause it's
Probably.
right on my street.
Okay. Did we cover the pedestrian connection grant, Laura, all the topics, or do you have, I mean, we talked about the
Yeah.
sidewalk and not, we talked about the crosswalk at Regent, we talked about the crosswalk at St. Joseph.
Yeah, everything's been awarded and the engineers are really ready to go. We're just trying to meet with the county, and the county has pushed back the meeting a couple times, but it is currently scheduled for this Monday, I believe August 3rd. Yeah. So
Okay, how about the,
theoretically, after we have that meeting, you'll see the survey crews out. They're ready to go. We just have to get permission from the county to get the survey crews out there and get designing.
okay. The Windsor Drive Kelts Farm, any update on that?
Yeah, I did want to let you guys know, because I was doing the minutes from May 29th, and I was again really struck by how thoughtful and complete your recommendation was on that configuration, but the town board was unwilling to do the road connection. So they did deny the road connection and ask for a bike path connection only. Not super surprising, I don't think, but I do think that it's a lost opportunity because we do have a lot of traffic on those side roads. And like, I think a couple planning board members have said before, like with the school reconfiguration and other things that are going on, the problems on Windsor Drive aren't going to go away. So, but the road connection, as far as this development goes, is not being allowed. So the special use permit is moving forward with the bike path only. And I was just looking at it, just to see, like, you know, maybe that's not my favorite. Everybody kind of knows where I sit on that. But what the opportunities are, given the constraints that the town board has given us now with no road connection, like what can we do to make that bike path connection the best that it can be? So I had a couple thoughts, and I haven't shared them with the developer yet, but you know, if the road connection isn't going through, so there's a couple benefits to the bike path. Here, I'll share my screen one more time, and apologies because not the planning board and the developer haven't seen my hand scratch. I just want to show you guys kind of what I was thinking. It's preliminary now because the town board only decided that a couple days ago, but like I was thinking before, we didn't really like. I wonder if I've got the old one up. I don't have the old one up. Before the bike path, well, you can see it. I drew on the old one. Before the bike path came on this side and it was crossing the road here and it was crossing the road here. And we had said, you know, as minimum crossings as you possibly can do, because every time you have a crossing, it's not great, right? So if you're not connecting the road, you can keep the bike path on this side of the trail the entire time. So you don't need to cross, you know, here or here. You can pull the bike path along these homes, put it on this side so Riverdale Drive people with the realignment can cross here and not have to worry about crossing that, which we had said before. But like, maybe you can pull it away. Like I was thinking, if the road isn't going through, you can get rid of some of the pavement that was proposed and maybe make a pavilion and kind of like there are loop-ins in here, like maybe make this kind of like a nice place that we could connect to the bike path. I don't know. The one benefit to it is that you don't have to cross the road multiple times. You can do something maybe more interesting with the bike path through here, and then obviously pull it on this side of the road over here.
Laura, can I put a thought out there? If this is the direction that it's going, I don't know exactly what, you know, the residents would be. I would like to see that area kept undeveloped. And I would love to see even just a note put on there to say, you know, area left undeveloped for potential future connection. So that if, you know, things change and they finally decide they want something to go through there, we still have the opportunity to connect those two if the neighborhood ever wanted it to happen. Just keeping that area open for that as a potential. If we block that off, then it's gone forever. And if change anything, there's no option there.
Yeah, yeah. So that was kind of the debate that the legal department and I and the town board were having. was that the town board can't dictate to the planning board what the sketch plan looks like. They probably can say no road connection because they're the ones that, that accept the road. But they were, like, generally speaking, okay with the sketch plan as proposed with no road connection. So the sketch plan as proposed does leave space. And I think that the multi-use path, even if you are a little creative with the multi-use path, can be moved if it ever needed to be moved. Yeah. So, the town board came out strongly. They don't want the road. But the planning board, I think, isn't going to put a house where the road's going to go. Maybe a multi-use path and a park, but not a house.
That's fine. Those are all changeable elements, but yeah, a house or a permanent structure in there would change. I like the idea of leaving the option there because something could change in 5 or 10 years. We just don't know. And if we're not making major changes to the site plan, at least leave that option open. It's there.
In the paper, they mentioned that there was an emergency road where they'd have like a barrier up, is that
the planning board?
Actually,
so you guys recommended the full connection with traffic mitigation, and then the planning board, working from that, also felt like the full connection was important, but recognized kind of the additional the traffic on Windsor Drive is difficult now, and the additional cars, could be problematic without some of the things that we talked about. Like we talked about traffic calming. And so their solution was have the developer build the road because then it's his money and not taxpayers' money, get all the infrastructure in, but then put a gate up until such time as the town board was able to do mitigation, traffic mitigation on Windsor Road, make it to the point where they feel like it would be safe to open up that full connection. And then you could open up that full connection. But the town board and the Windsor Drive residents were just not on board. They didn't want to see the paved connection. They didn't want it to be a temporary connection. And the town board, said no to that. But that was the planning board's compromise because they did recognize, which you did too, like Carla, you talked about it too, that there is an impact to the Windsor Drive residents. The benefit to the overall community is 100% there, but trying to protect the interests of the the neighbors would be put up some kind of a temporary block to that road until you can make it very calm, with whatever treatments that we could think of, and then open it up. That was the planning board solution, is the emergency gate.
And the final plan, was that the picture that you put up, or because I thought in the paper it might have been they used the previous plan, I checked that. I shouldn't.
You never called me and I forgot to call them back. I don't know what they posted.
Okay, so
there is no final plan. So it's just been sketch plan up to this point, and it was really just granting the special use permit, which is where the town weighs in. And so the town is allowed, has the jurisdiction to do what the town board will do. Now the plan goes back to the planning board with those constraints, and the planning board's going to figure out how to make that bike path connection, and where you want to put that cul-de-sac and any other changes that they want to make to the plan.
Okay, well, we forwarded our input at the request of the planning board to them, and they made their recommendations, and the town board has made their determination. So, and you can see Laura's still offering some suggestions on the bike path going through. And I think that's a good thing. At least the bike path goes all the way through to River Road. So that's a good walk pedestrian connection. And I do think there will be traffic on Windsor, and that, some of the folks that are around the corner that, make the right on Briar Ridge and go through those neighborhoods, they're going to get a little bit more traffic. But unless anybody else has another thought on that, why don't we move along to the Knott Street and the Co-op block? Any updates on that project?
I don't have any updates on it. Sorry.
So is there going to be an engineering study, or is that the town board did not approve that? So it's just we are going to stay with entrance exit to the Co-op parking lot on Knott Street, and that's what's going to be in the final plan. And is that the plan that's going up to the state to? That's
still the plan. I did talk to the county because you guys probably heard this. I mean, I love the idea of wrapping that sidewalk around and making the whole facade of the Co-op Plaza there look similar with a sidewalk around that supports all those businesses. The county did say that that is outside of their project and they wouldn't be able to do the sidewalk, but they certainly wouldn't be opposed to the town doing it. And they also aren't opposed to the town reconfiguring the parking spots. You know how we talked about those 4 that we didn't really like, that were kind of like facing towards, they're not, like when I was talking to them, they're not like, those ones have to be there. They are more than willing to consider, like, you know, if the town can get their act together with the engineering and come up with a plan for that area. I don't think that they, you know, would oppose that. It's just that funding, like for the sidewalks and stuff, they don't have that. So if we were going to try and wrap the sidewalks around, we'd have to think of something more creatively to do that.
Well, we can ask Metroplex if they'd help with that aspect of it. They might. They do a lot of sidewalks, so I think we should reach out to them if we need a couple extra dollars to do that wraparound sidewalk.
So that was my thought as well. And I think it probably makes sense to get a plan that, you know, is obviously going to benefit, you know, the area, like with a reconfiguration of the parking and adding the sidewalk and, you know, adding trees, like, and it's going to be very safe and very attractive. And then take that plan to Metroplex and be like, we figured it out. It's going to go great with what the county's doing. Can you help?
If we have a little space there, could we put a bike rack at that end of?
Yeah, we talked about that. I definitely think we should put a bike path on both sides, or bike.
Well, I
rack
think
on both
we
sides.
should start doing some a sketch diagram of if the town is okay with getting input from Complete Streets, that we should look at Crescent Road and Knott Street and wrap around to the sidewalk and put together a sketch plan that we like, and we'll share that with the town and the county and Metroplex and see if we can get some takers on it.
Is there space for like outdoor seating? So if that cafe goes in, or I know the Co-op sells coffee, people just wanted to
I thought
food and go sit
in one of the Co-op.
There is
Interesting.
space, yes. I think that, you know, that side is the pharmacy side, but I definitely think that bringing life to the street is going to benefit all businesses there. So we'd obviously have to coordinate everything with the pharmacy. The barber shop there was not able to reopen. COVID did them in, and so they've left. And the pharmacy is going to take over that space and probably put their main entrance to the pharmacy on the Clifton Park side. So, so the pharmacy is going to be kind of the main corner business there that we can coordinate with and make sure that everything that we're doing works for him and them. But I think that a sidewalk is obviously going to benefit him. Like better parking is obviously going to benefit with him. Like inviting people in, you know, to draw them there is, you know. So we just we know the players. When we can get some drawings out, we can reach out to them and figure out, you know, what works for them and what works for, you know, safety and all that stuff, and then get going on it.
So Laura, they're taking over the salon on the Clifton Park side or the barber shop not?
On the Clifton Park side.
That makes sense. That's a big space.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about the barber shop on the other side. You're talking about the hair salon that's on the Clifton Park.
Yeah.
Road.
Those guys weren't able to reopen. They just couldn't make it through.
Oh, I see. So he's going to take that space over as part of the pharmacy. And will he put the entrance to his pharmacy on Clifton Park Road as opposed to Knott Street, or is that something he's still debating?
Well, he's working on it, but he just went to the planning board for the tenant change because he was taking over to the salon. And he had some very interesting things to say about the way COVID has changed his business. They do a lot of home delivery now, and they do a lot of curbside pickup. And the front entrance is very small. And so, like, in order to keep people separated and, you know, safety rules and stuff with COVID, he was talking about making the front entrance just kind of like a consultation area for appointment only. And then you'd have more space and be able to move better using the Clifton Park side entrance as the main entrance into, like, if you're going to walk around as retail.
So anything we do over there, we're going to want to work with Lang's Pharmacy, right? Or he'll be a player on.
Yeah, and he
We
hasn't
should
really
find out.
figured it out because he has a lot of approvals he has to go through to change a pharmacy. But we were talking about, like, you know, if you're doing more signage, like facade upgrades, maybe we can incorporate those with the sidewalk there.
As a matter of fact, one thought I would have is this is a great opportunity for the pharmacy to get a facade grant from Metroplex so that, you know, we'd ask Metroplex for, if we need a little extra money to do the sidewalk, but it would be a good time, you know, if he's expanding, to ask for money for a facade grant so he could redo the Knott Street and Clifton Park Road side if he wants to make improvements there, either with a doorway or signage or painting or anything. He'd submit that grant and Metroplex will pay half the cost of it. And also, if he gets a facade grant and does it, that means other tenants in the co-op block, they'd say, wait a minute, the pharmacy guy got a grant and did something. And the more investment that Metroplex makes in it in terms of lighting, sidewalks, the more investment I think they're willing to make, because they want the block to be a commercial center and they're doing part of it. They'll be more open. So I think we should talk to the Langs folks and say, look, let's work on a design together, and you know, you should submit a grant, a facade improvement grant to Metroplex, and they'll help pay for half of it. So it would be a
Yeah,
good.
I'm really excited about it because I actually don't think of that side of the business very often. But when we were talking about it at our May meeting, I was like, yeah, there are doors to businesses on that side. Like, it's kind of an underutilized part of that complex that would invite a lot more residential people, you know, to draw them in. It's a long facade down that Clifton Park. So if you can upgrade it, make it, you know, give people the space to figure out how they're going to walk to it. Cause we talked about it, like right now, it's just a giant sea of asphalt and nobody, I mean, I've played chicken with a car there. Like, it's like, which way do you go? So,
Yeah. Well,
if you-
Paulina, Jim, almost everybody on the committee, including me, has pointed out it's kind of no man's land now.
Yeah.
So I think
if
that
we
we
make
need
one
to work
no
out
man's land, and then
the
he has
cars.
all that, yeah, and you're inviting people into a new entrance to his
Yeah.
store. It's all a win-win, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if you move the sidewalk out a little bit, I mean, could you just have cars turn in and just have parking kind of along the Clifton Park Road side, so that if you turn off a Knott, maybe you've got a little a sidewalk buffer area, but then you make a right turn into a parking space. And if you're on Clifton Park Road, you'd make a left or right turn in, so that you kind of try to clean up the parking. I mean, you clean up the road and the parking so motorists know, here's the road, here's the parking.
Yeah.
The bike, you try to clean it up as best you can. And also, is Gail King, is there going to be parking in the alleyway?
Yeah, that did get approved by the planning board. Yeah, they're gonna start
So
working
that's
on
got to be part of the parking plan too, right? I mean, kind of how that works. So,
that. I mean, the alleyway, you always have to leave an entrance and exit to the alleyway. That parking is really serving the apartment building, and she volunteered, because she's the commercial property owner, that it's kind of a shared parking, which our comprehensive plan encourages. So in the daytime, potentially the cars there are employees, and then at night there's people in the apartment buildings that would be able to park there, because they currently don't have enough spaces.
I mean, in terms of a final design, I mean, should we be asking an engineering? I mean, just like M&T or some engineering firm. I mean, they have kind of a firm design, so that we're working with somebody that,
that's
you know, it's not just pen and pencil. We get somebody that, here's how you square off the intersection from Crescent to Clifton Park. Here's how you do the auto parking. Here's Lang's new entrance. Here's parking, so that you try to make all the pieces fit together, and you've got a design that somebody's got on a CAD somewhere, either the Lang's designer or county, or, you know, somebody doing this, so that you get input from people. They go to the same person, you design something, and we have something that's not just handwritten. That
that's the idea. It's literally just, I have to get the RFP out.
Okay.
One of my million things that I have to do.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the Knott Street Co-op block before we move on? Okay. Niskuna school improvements. Tess, are you still with us, or?
I think she had to go.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here.
Okay.
Oh, that was
I
Lauren.
was wondering if anybody, I saw Howard Schlossberg at the farmer's market, and I did suggest to him that the school board may want to, if they're still planning on a bond referendum this December, that maybe they think about a virtual tour of the school buildings that would show residents of the town, hey, here's what's wrong. The roof is leaking. We need this, we need that, we need the other thing, so that if you're going to ask town residents to vote yes on a $50 million bond issue, that they may not be able to actually take a physical tour to go look at all the buildings, but you could take a virtual tour if you wanted to watch it, so that the school board is saying, here's why we think we need the money. But I did ask him, are there architects or engineers looking at input from the Complete Streets Committee on making each of the school campuses more bike and pedestrian friendly? And he said that that they'd given our input to them. And I guess I was wondering, I don't know if anybody's watched a school board meeting to see, I mean, if the architects said anything more about doing more bike paths or sidewalks or more breathability in terms of pedestrian and bike access on the schools, to see that some of what we asked for actually gets built into the plans for improvements in schools. And so I know we've sent an email, and I don't know, Tess, did you hear back from the superintendent or anybody else on your email to them?
So I did not, I haven't been to a school board meeting in a while. And even though I said I was going to send a follow-up email, I didn't do it. So I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. We're still got time.
But that's great that he said that he did submit it to the architect. And I just saw that for the back to school in the fall, they're at least encouraging kids to walk to school. I didn't mention riding your bike, but so.
The last one that I heard, they're really encouraging parents to either let their kids walk or to drive them, so that they don't have to deal with busing. But primarily, it's all been focused on COVID and how to get the schools back up, during the pandemic. It really hasn't been focused on school improvements or any of the other issues you mentioned.
That's what I figured, but yeah.
Interestingly, some of you may have seen it, the school came out with their COVID plans for the fall, and in those plans, they are actually taking us toward what the proposal is for the future 5 years of how they're going to change the schools. So kids are allowed to go back to school in the fall. Excuse me, 5th grade is actually going to go to the middle school. So the elementary schools are only going to be K through 4 starting this fall, if kids can go back. And Paulina said they are encouraging parents not to put their kids on the buses, because the buses can only run at half capacity, which right now I think means 8 or 10 kids on the bus, on the big buses. I think it's going to be interesting. And the kids are going to have different start times. They're going to have different groups, I think. But so the 5th grade will be going to the middle school now, where the elementary schools now, because they don't have the room to do it. But related to transportation, as Paulina said, they are actually saying that here, parents and legal guardians to drop off or walk students to school to reduce the impact on buses. That's specifically in there. And I think the walking and biking thing is fantastic, as I think we have discussed before. I am concerned about cars. I mean, we have already had an issue with car drop-offs in schools, and regardless of what recommendations the school comes out with, a lot more parents are going to want to drive their kids to school. And I think the lines of cars going into the school buildings is going to be astronomical. If we thought it was bad before, I think it's going to be even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get to walk and bike, it would be fantastic. Obviously we don't quite have the infrastructure in place we really want. It's what we're all working toward to make this better. But it's going to be a lot different in the fall if the kids go back, for sure. You're going to different buildings, and with a lot more people driving and walking and biking to school. Limited bike racks and other things. I mean, at the high school, they're already tying up bikes to posts, hold up part of the covered areas in front of the building and all that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I think it would be good for us to kind of start paying attention if kids go back, see what it is like, what's going on, if we can. Maybe we'll want to actually have us go out there and sit there and just record, get there early in the morning and record. How long does it take for the queue of buses and cars to flush through and drop everybody off between half the number of kids on the buses, parents dropping off, more people walking and biking. And then the fact that I think they're going to be, we've got, all these kids trying to get into the building, and they're going to be socially distanced. It's going to be a lot different. And I think it's going to take a lot of time for these things to go through and work their way through. So, So, again, the COVID is one thing, but it does seem like we're already kind of going to have, if we go back, a kind of mini, experiment in how things are going to work. If these changes related to the building changes. So
Do you think
Well-
that do you think the school board would be receptive or to hearing about the connectivity right now, or that they're too distracted with COVID to hear anything else?
I personally think they're open to, hearing about it. I mean, I think we have, folks on the school board that are open to connectivity, at least when Lauren is gone to present, or Tess or myself or other people, Jim have made the pitch for connectivity. They're at least nodding their heads up and down. When you see them, they're supportive. And Howard did say, well, we, have forwarded your input to our architects. And so they've got that. And I think we can talk to school board members to be sure to ask the architects, well, what about pedestrian and bike connectivity? Are you looking at that? And, they're hopefully experts as well, too. So they would see some of our suggestions. But it could be that the coronavirus is also pushing our agenda in a way, too, that, schools are looking at, how do we keep people out of buses and other things? If we can get more people to walk to school, that's better. If there are ways to make each of our campuses more bike and pedestrian friendly, that's a good thing. And so our committee's input, I think they're open to it. And I guess I'm just for, staying in touch with them. And also, if the bond issue still is on their plate, I understand I mean, I haven't heard that with the coronavirus, they're putting off that vote. My assumption is they still plan to do something in December. And so if they are, our committee is, we just want to make sure that plans for improving the bikeability and walkability are part of what they're asking their architects to do. And so really, I think all we got to do is maybe just monitor their meetings to make sure that they're asking their architects to do that. So I think they are. So I think we're in a pretty good place myself.
Yeah, maybe I'll write a thing that's focused now on just encouraging biking and walking to relieve congestion on the bus, and just to plant it in their minds, but then follow up again when things sort of calm down a little in the fall. I don't know. Like my sense is that they're pretty overwhelmed with just what kids' schedules would be and how people will all get into the school. Not like.
You're right. I think they are probably overwhelmed, but they can still tell their architects, we want walkability and bikeability to be part of what you're doing for our schools, and they're paying them some big money to do all these things. So it's on the architects to be thinking about some of these things. And my impression is the school board has asked them to do that. So I think they probably are. So.
Okay.
Yeah, they're still moving forward with the bond project. So I think we need to keep it in front of them. And, Tess, if you're going to write to them and talk about how, walkability and bikeability is important now for reducing the density on the bus, I think that's good. But, maybe, and I'm not difficult, but maybe there's a way we can tie this into the larger discussion and bikeability needs in town to say, this is going to happen. And it's been forced upon us, given the situation we're in now. This is the type of thing we've been talking about, needing to be done to improve ability. And to be honest, I think this is going to go on for a couple of years. Even if this thing clears and we all get shots, I think there are going to be a lot of people who are still going to be a little gun shy to get on buses and other things, for a little while now.
I agree.
And that this, maybe there's a way, without making it too complicated, that we can just kind of tie it in and say, this is what we have to do now. There is a larger picture here we've been talking about. Let's take this opportunity to see, let's pay attention. What works, what isn't working, and how can we make this, part of what we're trying to do overall to improve walkability and bikeability in schools and throughout the town. Because
could I suggest, is there anybody on the committee, either Paulina or Tess or whoever, just to maybe give the superintendent a call to see kind of where they're at on the walkability, bikeability stuff we've presented to them, and then just send the committee back an email on whatever response you get? Or would that be a possibility? I mean, I'll do it if no one else wants to, but I mean, I know, Tess, you've had a little relationship with CAUSE. If you want to do that, it's up to you.
I think he would, I would just get his secretary, unless I made a formal appointment with him. So, I mean, if I have something new to say, I will. I do think that they read what we send them, but I don't know that he would really, given how busy he is, I don't think he would grant me like special time to talk with him right now.
I think it's on their radar. It's just that they're overwhelmed. I mean, they not only have to figure out how schools are going to reopen, but then they have to figure out how sports are going to happen. And that got postponed a month just to give them some breathing room so that they weren't trying to figure all this out at the same time. But I think there's just so much on their agenda right now. I think that they're aware of this. And like you said, they've already talked to architects about it. But I think like
Well, the change agents of the world, Paulina, would say you never want to waste a crisis. So the school board is in flux. They've got a lot of things they want to do, and we're their helpers. Walkability and bikeability is a good thing, even if we didn't have the coronavirus, and it's a good thing even with the coronavirus. And so, it's just, we're glad they've been supportive of pedestrian and walkability, asking their architects to look at it. And, our message is we still want you to see us as helpers. We're supportive of this agenda, and we want you to keep moving it along. That's all. So,
what about this, Bill? I mean, in terms of the committee trying to help, push, move forward with some of these things, would people on this committee be willing to maybe we reach out to the school and just ask if we could just sit there and actually do, bike and pedestrian counts in the mornings on a couple mornings? We'd have to ask the school district for permission to do that. Sit on their grass. The committee be willing to sit out there in the mornings and just count the number of kids that come in on bikes and walking, just to get some counts, because I think the counts are going to be pretty high. And I think that's something we can show and say, look, there are people who can do it now. And if we improve infrastructure, it will be better later on, when you're doing $80 million building bond and everything else. If we make connectivity even better, then all these people who are doing it now, even more who can do it later, with a little bit of improvement in where we are now. I'm willing to go out and count, and I'm just wondering if people think and be willing to do it, and if that, that would be something we could certainly ask the school district to, if we could do that. It's just essentially sit on the corner and just count the number of kids that come in. It won't take that long, an hour and a half, or whatever.
I'm happy to be a volunteer, for a couple of days to do that.
Sure. And we can also check it, as you said earlier, Jim, how long it takes all the buses and cars to go through.
Clear. I just interesting statistics and good information to have. Again, trying to make something out of this crisis we're in, this pandemic we're in. He's trying to make something.
Yeah, I appreciated those articles that Bill had sent for last meeting, how, different cities are changing, to be more bike and pedestrian friendly because of this, and we should capitalize on it too.
Okay. One other possibility is we could do a draft email from, our complete streets that we send to the school board, just articulating, why, it's just kind of some of the points we've made in the past, just to let them know that we still think this is a good, solid tool for them to use. And, nobody necessarily has to get back to us, but we would kind of represent our position, just send it to the school board members, and Cause would get a copy of that because he's, we've got the emails, and just send it to them so they know we're still here and we're still supporting this agenda, and we'll try to make some of our points about why we think it's bikeability and walkability will be helpful. And
absolutely. I think if we make it, that this is relevant to help relieve the bus congestion.
Okay.
Does that sound good, Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, like, because I work with two of them, like, I could just send them a quick email that said the Complete Streets was very excited to see the encouragement of walking and biking to schools in response to the COVID crisis. We wanted to reach out and let you know we are here as a resource. We think that biking in school and walking to schools is extremely important now and in the future, and we would love to work with you on any projects to make routes more safe and bike ped friendly.
Yes.
That's great.
Then you can follow up with something like that, but I can just send that really quickly. Just
okay, great.
Yeah.
And then we can follow up.
And do you want to maybe one more line that just says that we appreciate that the architects are, reviewing our recommendations too for the capital project.
What is it called? We appreciate that the architects are reviewing our, I'm going to call them bike ped. had recommendations for capital project, you said, right?
Mhm.
Well, I'll call it capital improvement. Okay.
Do we want, would anything, could they do anything short and simple? Like, should we say like, I mean, maybe do they need to add a new bike rack at the high school potentially? Like that's something they could do right now to be ready for the fall?
Yeah. I mean, how much do bike racks cost? Like
Like
you can-
$500?
Yeah, like
A
you can.
couple
How much are they?
$100. That's right.
Yeah,
$200.
I mean, that's not budget breaking and can make a really big difference.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, I think we should ask them if they would look at bike racks at all their school. I mean, some have them, some don't, just to say, you know, the committee also, you know, is supportive of just asking you to look at your bike rack situation at each school and make sure you've, you know, got one or two, or if you have to add an
right.
extra.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one more line to like relieve congestion in the fall. We recommend that you consider adding additional bike racks. And then that could help with the social distancing also, so that people don't, because otherwise they have all the bikes packed in together. That's not good.
Yeah, adding additional. Like,
I have to go. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Paulina. I think we're almost ready to conclude. Anybody else have anything for today's meeting? If not, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. And I know, well, the problem is, you know that a Bill Chapman hour is 2 hours. And so we try to stay in an hour, but we're never successful. And so I'm grateful that everybody gives us their time to do the meetings. I think they're productive and they give us some thoughts and guidance on what we want to do next. And so I enjoy each of them. And so thank you for tuning in today. And thank you for all the input and
Thanks,
work you
Bill.
do in between the meetings. So have a good day. See you
Great.
next time.
Bye, Bill. Laura, I appreciate you banging that letter out right now. That's great.
Bye-bye.
okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, guys. Great meeting.
Thanks. Have a good day.